Hello and welcome to Two Yellows Make a Red, where we discuss some of the key talking points and refereeing decisions from the world of football. As ever, if this is your first time checking us out, remember to like the video, subscribe and leave a comment. You can also follow us on Twitter at Make a Red. Enjoy the episode.
This is something we'll be doing weekly, given that I am a referee and it is my life, effectively. So just a wee recap of some of the refereeing mishaps, incidents, etc. that happened at the weekend. So we'll get straight into it. Let's talk about Southampton to begin with. So Southampton versus Wolves at the weekend, they finished 2-1 to Wolverhampton Wanderers. Big up the Wolves, Scott. In that game there was two incidents of handball. One that was given by Craig Pawson. Was it Craig Pawson? It wasn't even Craig Pawson, was it? Just making up a referee. It was another referee, I can't remember his name.
It wasn't Mike Dean, you've been reffing every game last weekend.
What's his name?
Yeah, I was going to say, for someone who's in the referee union, you throw folk under the bus constantly.
I know, I just pick up a name and just go with it. Can't remember his name. Anyway, first penalty was given against Ryan Bertrand for a handball. On first glance for me, it is a handball. If we're going under the current handball law, he obviously doesn't mean it, but the hand is left out and it's trailing, and you can see he's trying to turn round and obviously avoid it. But in turning round and doing so, his hand is extended. It's a weird position for me. I know we don't talk about hands being out of position and stuff now with the current law, but it does come into effect there, and his hand is out. Simple penalty for me. I think with the debate sparks in this one is it's the handball on the other end against Dendoncker isn't given, and people will argue it's very similar. So if we just take Bertrand to begin with, for me as a referee, I am giving that as a handball. Would anyone like to disagree or dare challenge me?
I think it was on the harsh side of being given.
Okay.
Like, obviously, it involved to a fight back for Wolves to win the game, which was good for my point of view. But I thought it was just very harsh because the fact that the Wolves player is taking the shot so close to him, I just felt that there was very little time in him able to try and turn and get his arm out the way as the ball's coming past him. So I suppose in today's laws of the game, when they talk about how any ball just strikes an arm, it's a penalty. I suppose it is, but I just think it was on the harsh side.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I think I probably speak for a lot of football fans these days that with the new handball rule and just all the rule changes in general, I'm just absolutely clued as to what is and isn't a penalty. I can definitely see why it's given. Obviously, again, given the new handball rule, his hands in a fairly unnatural position. It's obviously out from his body. But Scott says extremely harsh. He's obviously got his back turned, so he's not even fully aware of where the ball is or what he's doing. Very harsh.
Okay.
I think it was a penalty. I think it was a penalty. I said last week with the Matty Cash incident that it was a goal-bound shot and he had his hand up and it hit it. And I said, regardless of where the shot's coming from or how far away from the goals are, etc., that it's denying a goal-scoring chance. I think it's kind of the same with Bertrand. It is a wee bit harsh, but like...
with any situation where a player's hand is out and it's away from his body, it's always going to give the referee a decision to make there. And I get what Fleming and Ryan have talked about, the fact he's jumping and he's turning round and he's not worried about the ball is going. But if you're doing that, just tuck your hands in, keep them down to your side.
Yeah. He doesn't have to have his hands way up like this. He doesn't have to, you can turn and block it like that, by keeping your shoulders in, but he goes, I don't know, he kind of jumps like that.
Right.
Like, if he was going to block the shot, he would have gone like that. So it's the same motion.
Yeah, it's a weird one. And we're now in this day and age that players should know that. So I don't think it's a very difficult one for the referee to make. It does surprise me that Bertrand, he drops to the floor and he looks rather upset about it, but he has to know that if he's leaving his hand out like that, there's a chance it's going to be given. So, aye, smashing. And then we move on to the Dendoncker one. Again, I'll try and briefly describe it using my big man words, but he essentially...
Man word.
Just say what I say.
And this is why you got to beat higher English, ladies and gentlemen.
I believe that's sexist. Women speak too.
Pardon?
I said that's sexist. Women speak too.
Oh no, women do speak too. So, but there weren't any women in this game. It was just men. I believe he's trying to do a diving header, or he's certainly trying to head in for the ball, and it strikes his arm when the ball's coming in. Well, this one, for the action he's performing, I think his hands are justified to be there, because I don't think I know if it's a diving header, but he's certainly jumping forward, and his arms are where I would have expected them to be. Again, he's not aware where the ball is, similar to Bertrand, but it looked more like one of those ones that it's just struck his arm, and it's done so in a natural way. So, again, I don't see that as a penalty. I can see why it wasn't given. Because the movement that he was doing, I would have expected his arms to be in that area. So that's the long and the short of it. I agree with the on-field decision. It wasn't a penalty. But from a Hasenhüttl point of view, standing at the side of the pitch, I can see why we might be quite aggrieved at that, because it is a very, very similar situation. So yeah, Gavin's thoughts on that one, gentlemen?
Yeah, I've not a clue what motion Dendoncker was going for in that moment, but I do agree that his arms were down by his side. It's a fairly natural position, and it's probably one of those that it's more ball to hand than hand to ball. So you probably can't answer this, Andrew, and that's fair enough. Okay. But I'll throw it to the other two guys. What is the difference then between the attacker getting the advantage, handballing it and possibly leading to a goal, versus the defender handballing it, which could obviously also lead to a goal, but he's getting away with that?
There should be no difference. If it's a handball, it's a handball. It doesn't matter if it's an attacker or a defender.
Exactly.
If you're going to have a rule, you can apply it universally. Part of the confusion of the handball rule is that they're trying to apply it differently to attackers and defenders. Yeah. It doesn't matter whether it's a handball and the boy scores, or if it's a handball and the defender makes a clearance. If it's a handball, it's a handball. At the end of the day, they keep on adding layers to these rules and they just confuse it far too much.
Yeah, I see what you mean about the layers, Alistair. It gets confusing for referees, I feel, because we're always learning the laws of the game every season that are developed, but if there's that many changes to a rule, sometimes it can be a case of that earlier versions of the law can sometimes linger about, and because it's getting changed so much, you're not getting time to adapt it. Because I think, if I'm right in saying this, the handball law has changed every season. Certainly for the last few seasons, there's been things changed to it. So, and that might just be small changes, but if a law is changing constantly, it does make it both confusing for players, people watching the game, and referees at a certain point. So I agree, there should just be a unilateral law, and they should just stick with it and roll with it, because I have no doubt the handball law is going to change again this season, or end the next coming season. So aye, well, that was grand. That was the Southampton game, so we'll take that off the list. And that, as I say, the only two decisions in there that was contentious was the handball. Next one I want to talk about is the Inter Milan game. Now, this was sent to me by my brother and Robbie initially. Robbie Pip Casely, just a clip in the Inter Milan game versus Lazio. This will be shout out to my brother. All right, Gammy.
And Big Robbie.
And Big Robbie, of course.
And Robbie get his full name.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I believe it's Martinez of Inter Milan running through on goal. A Lazio defender. Is it Hooded?
Yeah.
Yeah, Wesley Holt, he's on loan from Southampton.
The young man, yeah, Southampton player. Comes through the back of the player And at first glance, it looks like he gets the ball and it's a clean tackle. Referee takes a wee second and gives a penalty. All hell breaks loose. Son's crying. So it gets a bit messy. But it's one of those ones, again, when you slow it down, which they do for VAR purposes, of course, it looks... In fact, no, it doesn't really apply to this one because the referee and VAR...
First and foremost, what would you have given it as?
I've given it as a penalty. The thing I will say about this, though, right, is the referee isn't that close to the position of play. So, part of me thinks that he's got the penalty because he thinks... I need to try and word this correctly. The way... How far away he is from the play, the incident that he sees isn't actually the incident I think he has actually seen, right? Because when you then take a look at it on VAR, it looks like he definitely gets the ball. By no means he gets the ball, but his trailing right leg catches the back calf of Martinez first before he gets the ball. So he's taking the player out before he gets to that ball. Penalty kick. But you don't actually see that until you slow it down on VAR. So I think he's just seen the player go down in the box with a tackle from behind and gave the penalty, which is correct because he's... Well, it is a correct decision, but I don't think he knows that Martinez's leg has been caught from the back, if that makes sense. You don't see that until you slow it down and go into VAR because he isn't that close.
Yeah, he probably just assumes that he's actually cleaned them out.
Yeah.
Like, totally, and not gone through not clipped them before actually winning most of the ball.
Absolutely. So it's one of those instances that the referee gets it right in, foregone conclusion, but I don't think he's given the penalty for the reason he's given it, if that makes sense. So, penalty for me. Did you guys see it? Any comments on that one?
Well, I've seen, this is another incident where I'm absolutely clueless as to what the right decision is, because I've seen the highlights of the incident on YouTube, and it looks like Holt takes him out, and it's a clear penalty. But then obviously you had the replay from another angle that, as you say, Robbie and Cammy sent us, and it looked like he just cleanly wins the ball and nothing else. Yeah. So I've honestly no idea what the correct decision is. One thing I will say is, obviously, Scott made the very good point last week about if you slow anything down, it's going to make it look 10 times worse. So I don't think that's like a good justification to give a decision. If you slow an incident down, it's also going to look far worse. Yeah. But so that's all I would add. I don't.
It's not about making it look worse, because that was about the Souček thing where you're talking about is it aggression or not. Mm-hmm. This is like, this isn't making it look worse. This is just checking to see if there's contact before or after. Yeah. So I don't think it makes it look worse. It just makes it look...
I think it works for different incidents. Like the one that we were looking at last week is he's been sent off for apparently over-aggressive play, or if that's what you want to say. But then this one's a tackle where he's only kind of clipped him. It's not like he's went in 2-footed and taken the boy knee height, for instance. Whereas if somebody goes in 2-footed, they're going to always look... It's going to look 10 times worse than it already was when it's a flying challenge compared to just a normal slide tackle that he's just clipped the boy.
This is why I said it last week and I'll say it every week, this is why we need the ref and the VAR to be mic'd like the rugby, because we don't even know what he's looking at. We don't know. We've speculated that he thinks he's cleaned them out. Maybe he's checking the VAR to see if there's contact, in which case he's not looking to see like whether it's over aggressive or not or anything. He's literally just looking for the contact, but we don't know. So
positively for this clip is the fact that it gives the penalty, then VAR asks him to have a look anyway. When he has a look at VAR, he sticks with his decision. I think the only reason VAR is getting involved is they're wanting to know his thoughts on if he's got the player first or the ball. And in that instant, he takes the back leg of Martinez out first before he gets to the ball. And in that situation, he's obviously taking the man first before the ball. So I think it was a penalty kick. It was a good application of the law because obviously there is intent to get the ball. and he does get the ball, but after cleaning the player out, therefore the yellow card's given, because otherwise that would have been a red card. Obviously, with the law change, if a player makes a genuine attempt to get the ball, it's a yellow card. But it was a good one. And, you know, I'm very guilty of, when I'm looking at these decisions, I always have a look at kind of the comments that follow on Twitter or Facebook. And I must say there was a lot of following in the direction of agreement with the referee. A lot of people were agreeing with it. That was actually a clip that felt guilty to, and I think some of certainly a majority of the social media, the big media outlets, they'll put a big headline out and they'll put question marks or they'll put controversial and they'll make it a talking point when sometimes it's not actually necessarily a talking point.
It was in the last minute, wasn't it?
No.
I think it was late on. I thought it was late on.
I think it was in the first half. It was early in the first half.
Yeah, ignore me then.
No, it's okay. Yeah, it was early in the first half. But yeah, they made a big point about, is this controversial and stuff? And a lot of people were saying in the comments, well, no, I think it's actually a bit of a straightforward one. The controversy comes from the actual, the social media headline. And I mean, all the Lazio players are protesting to the referee, but that's to be expected in a Serie A game, in my opinion. No one really agrees with officials over there. So, to summarise, penalty. But another good one. Moving on. We'll come back to home. Well, not home. England's down south, but it's close enough. Leicester City game versus a team that I've forgotten. Who were Leicester playing?
Liverpool.
Ever the professional, Andy. Ever the professional.
Man. I know. Leicester versus Liverpool. Finished 3-1 to Leicester. A result I don't think any of us did expect. But the decision that people were questioning was the Maddison free kick. It wasn't the free kick itself, but the goal was scored and people believed a player was offside and interfering with the keeper, Alisson. So again, my point of view, ball is struck by Maddison. Ndidi looks to be offside, but do I feel he's interfering with the goalkeeper? No. Again, people were arguing the point that he's impeded some of the vision of the goalkeeper, but given the ball isn't interfered or touched by Ndidi, and it's going towards that keeper's. Ndidi and the keeper are pretty much close, like in the same area. I don't think you could argue that it's distracted him or anything like that. He's been able to focus on the ball. So for me, all was fine. Good goal.
Can we just pause to check? Sorry, Andrew. You weren't the ref that sent off Kieran Gibbons to the Oxlade-Chamberlain, are you? Because you've confused Amartey with Ndidi, or sorry, Ndidi with Amartey.
Oh, good lordy. Oh, it's just...
That's literally what I was about to say.
Yeah,
I don't know when Ndidi was on the pitch, but he wasn't the one that
playing.
Oh, yeah, do you remember that?
Ndidi was playing, I think. I just don't think he was near the ball at the time.
I've completely got that confused. My apologies. I was witty though, Ryan. I like that. Daniel Amartey, there you go. People were saying they thought he was offside and interfering with Alisson. Thoughts?
I can see where it was mainly Liverpool fans that I've seen online and talking about this. And at first, I did think, is he maybe a touch offside? And then I was watching it live, and I think it was. I'm sure it was Firmino. His back foot is playing him just onside. It is literally on the line, so he's onside. But I think the thing that then people were asking was, is it blocking Alisson's point of view of the ball, and is he going to see it fully? The fact that Amartey's making the run across, intending to get like a nick or something on it to put it in the net, misses it, but he misses that second at the sight of the ball, and so Alisson dies slightly later than he should. and for that reason it goes into the bottom corner. But I think it's a good goal. I seen on social media that folk were debating it to do with the fact that Alisson was unsighted for just that little bit of a second.
Yes, I can see where they're coming from, but I don't think there's enough Amartey to distract Alisson. And given the ball is heading towards that area anyway, the keeper is there. So, no, I don't think you can apply that law there. Unfortunately, it's a good goal. And I've got Madison on my fantasy team, so I need to root for that. But no, I couldn't say any other issues. Any comments?
I think if it's a set piece or something, and you've got loads of folk in the box, you can't be chalking a goal off because somebody was in the keeper's way or unsighted the keeper. Like, come on. Yeah. There's about 20 people standing in that box.
It's clutching its straws a bit, isn't it?
Yeah. It's just, I don't like that ruling at the best of times because I think it's arbitrary. And also, I think it saves keepers from poor positional play sometimes. But there's so many folk in the box, there's so many moving pieces. I just don't think you can give an offside for that. Having said that, I'm a Liverpool fan, so the goal should not have stood.
Yeah, I think Alistair's point about obviously it's a free kick coming from like a wide position. Like, yeah, you could probably argue Marty is kind of in Alisson's way, but like I think when the ball comes from wide, you can't really apply that thinking. If it's a shot that's like straight on and someone's blocking the goal line in front of them that way, then I think that law is maybe slightly more justified. But not for a ball coming from wide, not for me.
Yeah.
There's people in the goalkeeper's way all the time with a free kick. Like that's so yeah, it's always offside.
Yeah. So for that one, obviously that was requested to Fleming by Aaron Doran. So my message to Aaron would be to dry your eyes, mate. It was a great goal.
He's gonna love that.
Another shout out.
Aaron is
We've just got a subscriber.
Great, moving on. Arsenal game. Arsenal are playing another team. This team, I'll be honest, boys, it's been an absolute disaster. Arsenal.
You'd think he'd do his research, yeah.
Playing somebody in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Arsenal.
You've got 1 in 19 go.
Leeds United, just to let you know.
Right. So Arsenal are at home to Leeds.
Yes. Well, you got that right.
There you go. I know that. First incident is Saka. Saka goes down in the box. A penalty is given by the referee, and that is then overturned when he goes to the monitor to have a look at it. Another good decision by VAR in that instance. I don't think we're going to see that very often. A good decision by VAR, but it was not enough for a penalty. Contact, yes, but enough to warrant a penalty, probably not. Was it a dive by Saka? I will firstly argue the point that it wasn't. I don't think he's got it in him. Now, I don't know players personally, obviously. I don't slide into their DMs to ask them if they enjoy a good tumble. But it's not something I've seen him do before. And he is already off balance, given the speed that he's going. I think there's a challenge comes in before. So I think he's already a bit wobbly. So I think there is contact. He does go down, but it's not enough for a penalty, in my opinion. So ultimately the decision was correct, no penalty, and we move on from that one, in that decision. So the thoughts on that one, gents? I've seen Alistair shaking his head. Obviously think Saka is a big fan of the Olympics, so...
I mean, I take your point about he might have been slightly off balance, but the way he goes down, he still exaggerates it and flops over. Like, if there's not enough contact to merit a penalty, and he's still going down, it's a dive. Like they never book them for it. It's a booking.
Okay.
Book him and stamp it out.
That's a nice message, that. Obviously, as a referee, I would agree with that message. Stamp out diving. The only thing I would say about that is If I'm off balance,
my problem is that I watch it again, and if he's off balance, then fair enough. But my problem is that referees never book them in that situation.
Right.
So I feel like he's off balance. It sounds like a cop out, because even if he wasn't off balance, you wouldn't even booked anyway. They never book them.
What I will say though is, if I'm in the street and I'm drunk, and Alistair leans on me as I'm walking down the street, and I'm drunk.
I don't really think it applies. I don't think Saka's making a bottle of Rachmaninov vodka in the changing room before he comes out. Like,
I'm trying to say that if I'm off balance anyway, and somebody puts a bit of pressure on me, I'm probably going to go down, and that's not me doing that intentionally. You might have done, but I think you're going to go down anyway, just with a bit of balance, a bit of pressure. So that's the only thing I will say about that. But I agree with the message, stamp it out, because diving is something that happens quite a lot in the Premier League, and it amazes me how many times it doesn't get given a yellow card, and it's as if the referees are scared to do it, and I don't know why. I mean, there's very obvious ones, and you know, I do like Liverpool. I'm a big fan of Salah, but of all the culprits in the Premier League to be a diver, Salah has to be number one. He goes down very often, and usually under very little amounts of pressure. So, but again, I can't remember the last time I've seen him picking up a booking. So, I understand what you mean, Alistair. It's definitely a problem. But in terms of the Saka penalty, Ryan, are you giving
it? No, I think as you guys both said, VR got it right. And I don't have anything interesting to really add. I basically agree with everything Alistair said. He went down way too easily for me, and he should be get booked for diving. Saka's a fantastic little player, but he went down way too easy in that instance for me. Yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say, I just watched the Saka thing, and it's a dive. He feels a wee bit of touch there and goes down, and he's calling for it as he's going down. Dive.
I thought he was off balance, but I need to have another look at it.
He might be off balance, but he's already going, help me. His keeper comes across and breathes on him.
It's a concern, especially at English youth level, if that's the sort of message you want to get across to young fans. But again, different debate. Fleming, last thing from you.
I think Saka's a player.
Yeah, Saka.
I don't think it's an English thing though. I think all players do it. It's just unfortunately part and parcel of the game these days. Everyone just tries to win penalties and fouls by any means necessary.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to condemn English youth. I was just declaring it was English youth. And I think regardless, obviously England is where there were a lot of England fans watching England Premier League games. So I was just doing a wee tangent on English youth, sending the wrong message there. Fleming, Saka, penalty? No.
No, it was rightly overturned. It's not a penalty. What I was going to say was, it is, but it isn't a dive. I know this is going to sound stupid, but there is contact. So it's not officially a dive, but he's like over-egged it, basically. He's made it look like it is a penalty when he's just thrown himself to the ground. And an instant I'm going to bring it back to is Ayeti for Celtic was given a penalty when he went down like a sack of tatties against Kelly. And that just was a joke. It was like, honestly, he breathed on him and he fell down. And yet they actually had given him out a retrospective ban for that. Then it was overturned because apparently there was a tiny bit of contact, so it technically wasn't a dive.
Yeah.
So that's what you could say about this instance. There is a little bit of contact, so you can't technically call it a dive.
Oh no, there's definitely contact.
The problem is, at the moment, too many players go to ground too easily and get rewarded for it. We need to start dishing out more yellow cards for things that look to be dives to try and encourage and incentivise players to stay on their feet. That's the way you solve it, is by booking players. And even if players are like, oh, but it wasn't a dive, but the next time they'll look to stay on their feet.
You know, that's actually not complete tangent. Again, bringing it back to me, making it personal. I don't think I've actually ever given a booking for a simulation. So there you are, in 5 years of refereeing. Might just start doing it for the partner now.
Let's see that in his next match. First match back. Bookings for diving.
For anything, aye. Great. Sums up Saka. God, we've actually all agreed so far, pretty much, to an extent. Apart from that one. Apart from the Saka one. Well, we've done Drysdale for last. That'll be a juicy topic. Final one before Darren, Big Daz. The Harry Maguire penalty call. Really not much to say about it. Quite laughable. A man of that.
I'm sure Ryan has a lot.
Yeah, Ryan will probably be asking for deduction and points here, left, right, and centre. But yeah, for me, not a penalty. Probably, if we're talking about diving and players going down too easily, I'm joking, but he does go down for a man. Right, again, referees, we shouldn't be looking at comparing body sizes, stuff like that. But for a man of his stature against the player that he was, for him to go down like that, it just looked a bit daft. What made me laugh about that is the fact that he then appealed to the linesman, who's on the far side, who has about 6 players in front of him. So I've no idea why he thinks he's going to be able to get involved in that situation. Also, VAR exists. You don't need to appeal to a linesman anymore. Comical. Fleming also brought up a point that he was offside, so regardless, had it been given, it was given, and Craig Pawson went to VAR and overturned it. But I didn't think it should have been a penalty regardless. It was a bit soft. And he was offside. So, yep, again, we'll start with Fleming and Alistair, because Ryan will probably spend about 15 minutes on this, telling us how Harry Maguire is the next best thing, since Virgil van Dijk. So, Fleming, penalty, no penalty?
No, he should be banned for it, so... it was genuinely... Yeah, I don't know if he's trying to get into the Tokyo Olympic squad, but he gave himself a fair shot at it. But no, I actually seen it online that you should strip him of the captaincy. For to be the captain of Man United, such a big club like that, and to be throwing yourself about like that is actually just an embarrassment for, as you say, younger people watching this going, oh, so that's acceptable then. When it just isn't. So, no, it was, and as you say, just to add insult to injury, it was offside and all. But, the fact that it was given, I laughed at more than the dive as well, because I was just like, you can't, surely you can see that the guy's not even close to him that's marking him. He's actually lost his man, and Maguire's just went and thrown himself to the ground. So, nah, for me, I would have booked him. I'd have sent him off if I could. The fact that how bad it was, but
one thing I'll say before Alistair jumps in there, Craig Pawson, again, he's just outside the edge of the area, and the incident takes place in the edge. Sorry, he's towards the middle of the park, and the incident happens on the edge of the box. So the view of his is he's just going to be seeing a player go down. He's not going to get a brilliant view of it. Just off the bar, you were saying that he was nowhere near him, and obviously VAR got involved and said no. But yes, Alistair, would you like to further crucify Maguire?
So when I first watched it, the guy has his hand on Maguire's back.
Yeah.
So when I was watching the replays, I was looking to see if there was a shoving motion, because I'm assuming take offside. It was offside, obviously it doesn't stand, but put that to the side. I'm assuming if you're a referee, you're looking for any foul. So I can't remember the guy's name. He has his hand literally placed on Maguire's back as he began to run, and completely unbiased, I cannot see a push in motion at all. So I can't see any reason. I can't see a foul in there.
Yep.
So I can't see any reason to give a penalty. So if you're given a penalty for someone's hand just being on a back without an obvious shoving motion, then you're given 20 penalties a game. Yeah. And that's one side of it. I don't actually see a foul. And the second side is that Maguire's like 6 foot something and goes down like a sack of totties. You know, it's just, I don't know why he has it in his game. Like, you know, can you imagine 20 years ago somebody like Tony Adams going down like that in the box? You just wouldn't. This guy's meant to be, you know, he's meant to be one of the captains in the England squad. He's meant to be a captain of Man United. I just don't understand why he's doing that. I don't know why he brings it into his game.
No.
But I'd book him. I'd book him for a dive, but obviously that would get completely overruled because it's offside. Yeah. The guy's hand was on his back, but there was no foul there. Maguire tries to buy a penalty. It's a booking.
You'll find as well, again, just going off my experience as a referee, and the one thing that will always be etched into my head is hands ref. Because every player seems to think that if I am touching an opponent, as a player obviously, that's a foul, and it's not. You can have the hands on an opponent, it's a physical game, but if you are pushing them, or pulling them, or holding them, it's a foul. So, again, going off what Alf was saying there, he has his hands on him, yes, but there's no obvious pushing and there's no obvious pulling. So, and it's quite obvious when somebody's pushing you. You can tell. Or pushing a player rather. So, yeah, not a foul. And humorous to find him on his rear end, hands in the air greeting. That's an image that helped me sleep at night. So, Ryan, obviously the referee's got it wrong. Man United should be awarded the title now.
Is there any point in me even arguing a case?
I'll give you your best shot because, you know, we'll try.
Right, fine. So, first off, I think I agree with the point about the state of the game, that, like, a player's going down under that minimal contact, and I do agree that they did get the the decision correct, but it was for the entirely wrong reason, in my opinion. So, with the Saka penalty, or the Saka incident we've just discussed, obviously the penalty was given, and we've all agreed it was correctly overturned because there's a clear and obvious error there. There was minimal, if no contact. Whereas in this instance, yeah, like, it's incredibly minimal, but there's a clear shove. His hands are on him. Like, you can't say that's clear and obvious to be overruled.
Again, there's not a clear shove. This is a shove. That is me having my hand up. Like, he doesn't shove him at all. If he shoved him, Maguire would go forward, not backwards like a ballerina like he went. There's not a shove, mate. You can take your red-tinted glasses off.
As I say, I think they did get the decision correct, but they should have... I mean, surely you have to look at the build-up to the incident before the actual incident. Surely you have to look at the offside. That's what really annoyed me, is if they checked the offside and given it for that, then fair enough. But the fact they've overruled the penalty, that's what annoyed me about it.
I don't know why it went to VAR. I assume.
And the fact you had Bruno in your fantasy team.
And that as well, yeah.
Of course, who doesn't?
I'm assuming it went to VAR for the
captain, mate, captain.
Because what they would have done is check the foul first, Ryan, and VAR. If it is a foul, they would have then checked the offside, and then obviously if it's offside, it can't be given. They'll do it in that. They'll always check the foul first, then is it offside or not. Obviously, we all don't agree that is a shove. Entitled to your own opinion, but it is. If I'm shoving somebody, it's more obvious that I'm shoving somebody than having my hands on it. You can usually tell. I want to just quickly spin a point to you gentlemen as well. If I've forgotten it, I'll be quite frank. I was on my head and it's gone. What was I going to do? What was I going to say? If a player goes down, yeah, that's it. If I'm a referee and I'm watching a player and he oversells he oversells it, he falls down like a sack of totties, like he's been sniped, right? Am I more likely to not give a penalty because of his dramatics rather than give the penalty? So do you think referees are influenced by the dramatics of how a player falls rather than the actual foul, if that makes sense?
Half the time,
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Sorry,
go on, Scott.
No, I don't think they look for what. I think it just depends on each referee's discretion, but I don't think they look all the time at a player either yelping or shouting or throwing themselves about as much as they can. I think they are looking to see, is there enough contact for a penalty or a free kick or whatever it is. But I do think when people throw themselves to the ground and make a noise or scream or whatever, it does then make the referee go, oh, is that actually quite battered? And then they might just blow their whistle up and go, yeah, free kick, or yeah, it's a penalty.
Yeah, I think reputation definitely precedes some people. Like, it's an unfortunate part of life in football and in life in general that there's going to be prejudice and biases. And I feel like that, obviously, certain players, like off the top of your head, you've got like your Neymars, your Grealishes, they go down way too easily. And that's obviously a perception that's either like propagated by fans, the media, or maybe it is just an actual thing. And obviously, I think that's going to be in the referee's head. So absolutely, if they're like in two minds about a decision whether it was or wasn't foul on, say, for example, Neymar, they're probably more inclined not to give it if they were unsure, I would say, in that situation.
Okay. Yeah. Next time Maguire goes down in the box, that's what the ref's going to be thinking. He went down far too easily.
Yeah, I mean...
So, just very quickly on the Maguire thing, this is not what I believe, but I'm just throwing it out there as a discussion point. Obviously, so we had the debate a couple of weeks ago, it was about the whole David Luiz thing, where he was sent off because he was deemed not to be going for the ball. Mm-hmm. Whereas if he'd been deemed to be going for the ball, that'd be a yellow. Okay. So applying a similar line of thinking, how can the referee say, like, how much contact there needs to be for a player to fall down?
I think in that scenario, first of all, Maguire is 7'9". Against a player of that stature, he probably shouldn't be going down. But second of all, I see what you mean in terms of how can a referee argue how much contact is needed. But I think as a general rule of thumb, there needs to be considerable contact or justifiable contact for a player to go down. Because don't get me wrong, the instance we've talked about, there has been contact. But if I'm in the middle of the park and that similar contact is happening, it's not a foul. Therefore, why should it be a foul in the box? So, if we're going down the route of minimal contact, football as a sport is just not going to be. It's just going to be an absolute farce because you'd have fouls all over the place if there was a minimal contact was brought into consideration. So I see what you mean, Ryan. I see what you mean about how can a referee determine how much contact is needed, but I think it's obvious in some situations.
Because that's why they look for like certain motions, like I was saying. Yeah. Like he's definitely got his hand on the back, Ryan. 100% agree with you there, but it's not a shove. Like it just isn't a shove. No. What you would if I shoved you, what you would see that in your head is when I describe that is not what the defender did to Maguire. Like it just isn't. But that's what I'm saying is the referee, because it's so black and white. He has to look for an obvious motion, something that in his eye merits a shove. I honestly think that it should be the referee's professional judgment. Yeah. I think something's too black and white, and the contact thing is if you go all contact must be a penalty because you want to eliminate all grey area, then that's too penal in my opinion. So I think that you go with the referee's interpretation. Yeah. Because he's the professional. He's supposed to be. He's far more informed than I am. Yeah. Anyway,
I'd agree with that. Great, good wee discussion there. Finally, one a bit closer to home for me certainly. So Drysdale in the Ipswich game was seen to confront a player head to head, Alan Judge. And subsequently, today is Thursday, subsequently it's came out that Darren's been charged by the FA and he's been dropped for this weekend's game. He was meant to be refereeing a League Two fixture. I think it was Luton Town. No, it was not Luton Town because they're Championship. It was a League Two game. He's been dropped from that. I'll kick it off by saying that, firstly, I don't think he's done that for no reason. So I think there's obviously... I didn't see the game, didn't see any flashpoints in the game or anything, but Alan Judge has obviously said something to the referee in that instance to warrant such a reaction. Should he have stuck his head in towards Alan Judge? Absolutely not, because you wouldn't expect it of players. If players did that, we're looking at bookings or sending offs. All right, it's an adopt an aggressive attitude. So I don't agree you should have done it. Do I agree that it's good to see a referee stand up to abuse? Yes. I think football has gone on long enough now that abuse towards an official seems to be a very standard notion, particularly from the fans. I wouldn't say the players are as bad as some of the fans, but we all know it. Referees get a lot of dogs abuse in the park. And I feel it's one of those points that highlights that a referee's obviously had enough, and therefore it's wanted that reaction. So as I say, do I think it was wrong? Yes. Do I think it was morally wrong? Probably not. It's good to see a referee sticking up for himself. I think you know why. So the incident was Alan Judge went down in the box, and the referee actually deemed it to be simulation. So gave the free kick to the defending team and then booked down for simulation. There was actually argument if Darren Drysdale hadn't done what he'd done, there was argument for a second yellow. So he's booking him for simulation, and then he's booking him for dissent. So he could have technically been off. So Darren actually kind of, to an extent, saved Alan Judge from a sending off by doing what he done. So, yep, that's my view on it. Thoughts on that one, gentlemen? A referee sticking up to himself, or sticking up to a player?
I mean, I sympathise with that ref and refs in general. They absolutely, as we kind of touched on last week, they do get far more abuse than, obviously, say in a sport like rugby, where there is that respect. But I don't think it's on the referees themselves to kind of take matters into their own hands and try and bring about that respect. That's a far more wider thing, needs to be on a more kind of broader level. So I think the analogy I would use is the referee is kind of like the teacher in a classroom. He's there to keep order. And if he's there doing stuff like that, like he just can't do that. Like a teacher can't react like that to a kid no matter what they say, and a referee can't react like that no matter what the players say to him. Because I mean, if that was sort of a precedent, then you obviously, as we said before, referees are getting abuse every week. So we're going to see referees every week now, like, you know, going face to face with players. It's just a very like slippery slope and one you don't want to go down. So I sympathise with the ref, but I do agree with the ban, and I do think it's the correct decision, because if that's a player, then they're getting the same treatment. And then I guess, as much as the referee is a teacher, as I've said, he is also a player, and therefore a similar standard should be kind of applied to him.
Okay. Clement?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have covered most of it now. Both the player and the referee are in the wrong. I think it came out earlier, we were talking about it before we came on here, that Alan Judge had came out and said that he'd apologised for what he'd done, and said that the referee shouldn't have done what he did, but shouldn't have been banned, and yet he's not really covering his own. He said sorry to the referee, but he's not said that he was in the wrong for what he did. So, which arguably started everything in the first place. But yeah, as we talked about last week, footballers seem to think that the referee, they can talk to him however they want and they'll get away with it. And I just think that it needs to be addressed. If it doesn't get addressed after this incident, you kind of question, when is it going to get addressed? Because there's no point saying, we'll do it at the end of the season. And they've been saying the same about different stuff as well, but you have to address it there and then when something like this happens. Otherwise, you're just going to get a player maybe next week going, oh, well, he only got a telling off, so it's not that bad.
Okay. Yep. Just before I get Alistair's thoughts, do you think, obviously the referee's been punished, etc., and as I say, rightly so, but if Alan Judge hasn't been punished, do you think it sets a precedent for players that equally they can go up to the referee and put head next to theirs and get away with it? Because that's effectively what's happened here. As much as Darren was in the wrong, Alan Judge has also put his head against the referee's head and got away with a ban and got away with any retrospective action. So does that set a precedent for players that that's deemed acceptable?
Yeah, the player should definitely get a ban in that situation as well. For me,
Nice. Alistair, thoughts on that?
no, I don't think really that. I think, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
On the whether the player should get a ban, yeah, you should do. It takes two to tango.
Yeah.
So I think the referee was rightly banned, and I think the player there should be repercussions for him too. You can't respond like that to a referee. In general, I think Ryan summed it up perfectly, and I thought the analogy of the teacher in the classroom was spot on. You know, like he's in a position of authority, and it's not professional conduct. I said last week that I wanted to see more character from referees. I wasn't quite expecting somebody to put their nut on a midfielder, but you know, move. But yeah, I mean, he shouldn't have done it. He's been banned. He came out and apologised, and I think that should be a line drawn under it. But I do think Fleming made a good point where he said, if you don't deal with abusive referees now, when do you? Yeah. So it's yeah, maybe is it EGMOL, whatever they're called? Yeah. Maybe they need to have a look and see if they can protect referees further from similar things. But I do think that the right outcome happened in that referee got a ban and he's apologised for it.